Welcome back to another devlog. I've done some basic work on AI, which is pretty much I've added in the ability slash need to sleep, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But most of the work was done on some optimizations, mostly to do with how do objects query other objects in a more efficient manner. I'd always heard that dynamic casting was slow, so I went about checking that. Quick bit of backstory. All the objects in the game are space objects, which means an area which contains all these space objects is just basically a vector of space object pointers, and then it's up to something else to figure out, like, is this actually the object I care about? So yeah, basically the AI knows which character it's controlling, the character knows which area it's inside of, and the area knows which other objects are there. So when we want to know, hey, what food is around, it goes to the area and goes, get me all the objects, and then does previously, it would do a string type check to see, is this a placed item, and then it would do a dynamic cast to that. If you're wondering why I was using string type checks, this is because I was trying to keep the whole system fairly simple and wanted to make sure that when I serialized and deserialized, it was very easy to quickly be like, okay, I'm serializing this type of object that's a placed item, and when I deserialize, I can go, oh, I've got this, it says it's a placed item, I know how to deserialize that. And then as I added in a new kind of item, nothing else really needed to know about it. But you know, I kind of always thought at the back of my head, it's not necessarily great, but for a handful of objects, it doesn't matter. So I wanted to test what's the string type check penalty and what is the dynamic cast penalty. So I set up some benchmarks. Got the dynamic cast, which is the slowest by far. We've got my original, which is the string type check and then a dynamic cast. Then I switched to using a reinterpret cast with still the string check. Then I swapped out the string for an enum class. And then I started playing around with, instead of using a static method and a virtual class method, I switched to a static field and a class field. And then finally there's a no cast, just doing a field comparison. I'll throw up a little bit of code just to show exactly why there was these things. Basically, I've got it where, in the character header file I define, here is the string. I had a static method that was just a very simple way of being like, what type is a character, and it returned string character. The field switching between fields and methods makes a difference, but not really that much, given that this benchmarking I was looping 100 million times. But it was kind of good to see that it isn't really doing all that much. So yeah, in the end I chose to use the static class field enum class, but with a virtual method on each class. Mostly because it was very easy just to chuck in another overload that virtual method, be like, yes, this is the actual type of this, and then when I do a cast, I can check like, hey, I want to cast to character, is this type already a character? If it is, reinterpret that pointer, pass it back. Otherwise, it'll return. I use try cast, very C#, but it works fairly well. Yeah. So hopefully, the next main thing is to actually figure out social interactions. Have it where birds actually pay attention to each other. Maybe they won't get stuck looking at each other. And even better, they could do something where they would have a conversation. So an action that causes another bird to also have that action. It means both of them can fill up their social needs or fun needs. Also get them to have some more natural movement instead of moving in straight lines all the time. Certainly for any longer distance stuff. See you in the next one.